Now, French company Canal Plus, currently holding a 35% stake in Multichoice, has offered to take over the company at 105 Rand a share. Despite its recent market value decline and challenges in African markets, Multichoice maintains that the proposed offer significantly undervalues the group, prompting questions about a fair valuation. As it stands, Multichoice seeks a regulatory guidance from the Takeover Regulation Panel regarding Canal Plus's increased stake. The situation remains involved, stirring market uncertainties. Joining us to unpack this in greater detail is technology correspondent Mudiwa Gavaza. Mudiwa, always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
No, good afternoon. I'm sure you can see our sector's keeping us busy, eh?
As I always say, it's a very vibrant sector, very robust things happening with you. And I mean, last week we would have had a chat, and this was an offer being made, and a lot has happened in the last 5 or 6 days. Yeah. Let's just talk about why Multichoice has, approached the Takeover Regulator here, because I think it's an important part of the energy around this deal.
Cool. So some interesting things going on. Of course, you've got that deal, that values Multichoice at around 46.5 billion Rand, 105 Rand a share. Now, where the issue is that Canal Plus has been slowly building up its stake, as slow as you can go, but from last week they pushed it up, depending on what measure you're using. Some had it at 32, some had it at 33, and then they, pushed it up to 2%. I know from Canal Plus themselves that they were sitting at just under 33, just over 33% last week, and they've now put it to 35. Now the issue is when you get to 35%, of a holding of a JSE listed company, you must make a mandatory offer to other shareholders, because you're crossing a threshold over which we are realistically saying that perhaps you want to take control of this business, or perhaps there's a bigger play that you want to make, right? So that's the rationale behind that specific rule. So now the Multichoice has basically filed the necessary documents, because they have to declare. It's just like how companies usually declare as and when companies go above 5%, right? That's actually how we even knew that Canal Plus was investing in the first place. Back in 2020, Multichoice had to file, something to say, hey guys, there's a French company that's now owns 6.25% of our company. That's where we, sort of began. And now, this is where we are.
So, Mudiwa, you and I have spoken about the issue of the 20% threshold, foreign ownership of a South African media company. What's the point of control if your voting rights are limited to 20%?
Well, that's an interesting one. When we spoke to the CEO of Canal Plus last week, that was literally the first question that we asked him, because all the investors that we spoke to, that's literally all they were saying. Okay, sounds like a great deal. Sounds like there's cash on the table for investors, and for Multichoice shareholders, we get to exit, great, but is the deal really going to go through if they can't control this thing? So the CEO of Canal Plus told us that they have found a solution. His words were, we've been investing in this company for more than 3 years now. We've engaged with experts. We would not have made an offer if we didn't have a solution. I'm still, engaging the industry, trying to figure out, what's going on. I'm going to give you my rudimentary thesis, right? I wait to be corrected by those that are more knowledgeable than me. But I suspect it has to do with the fact that Canal Plus is looking to do an IPO, right? And as part of their IPO ambitions and as part of this deal, they're saying that they want to list on the JSE. And I suspect somewhere inside there might be a workaround where if they're listed in South Africa, then it might help them to get around some of this stuff. Once again, I'm not an expert in this area. I'm waiting to be, advised otherwise. But I suspect it has to do with the fact that Canal Plus has said that they want to list in the local market. That might help them to get around some of these things, because they'll be locally listed.
Let's talk about 105 Rand, because that's what's happening here. This, what we are seeing here is the rejection of this 105, and I guess valuations are complex things, especially if the valuations aren't made public and you and I can't see them. But there are various numbers flying around here about the true value of Multichoice. Just talk to us about that.
So, if you're Multichoice right now, Your biggest issue is that you've thrown it out into the market that we think we're more, right? Now, you must tell us how much is more, right? How are you valuing yourselves, right? Either you must do it publicly or, you know, on some level. There are analysts that are sitting and making investment decisions, that are making recommendations to portfolio managers, fund managers, and the like right now. And they're all sitting there scratching their heads, right? Because when you look, we used, you know, some data that was coming, you know, that was coming in from, there's Iris and then there's Infront, right? And the consensus, at least on Infront, is that the median is about 87 Rand a share. The range is going from 70 Rand a share to 104.50, right? And when I spoke to an analyst yesterday, we spoke to Philip Short from Flagship, and he said, you know, market consensus is at 105, you know, Rand a share. And then we backed that up by what we were seeing on Infront, right? So it shows you that from an analyst point of view, that's what they're seeing in the market, to say, at the most, we're valuing this company at 105 Rand a share. At the bottom end, 70. And 70 is in line because just before Canal Plus came in, Multichoice was trading at 75 Rand a share. And that's the other argument around here, to say, okay, the market usually discounts, you know, for what's going to go on in the future, right? They would have baked in some of those things, because Multichoice says you guys are not taking into account our future, you know, rates of growth, business, all that stuff. And usually market players, especially the patient capital, would have factored all that in. And that's the other argument that's coming in, to say, well, the market had already valued you guys at 75 Rand a share before Canal Plus, you know, came into the mix. So now they need, at some point, we're going to need some clarity. Multichoice might tell us that they're in a closed period and all of this stuff. So I doubt that we're going to know what's happening. And then I think just the last thing on this particular front is, one can understand why a company might not want to reveal what that is. Remember that to this day, we are still pinning whatever Telkom is worth based on what Sipho Maseko told us it was worth to us back in, must have been 2019, 2020, somewhere there, right? That 97 Rand a share and all of that stuff, 53 billion Rand, you know, versus the 14. So you can understand why people might not want to throw a number in the market, because we will hold you accountable for it years to come from now.
We don't have much time, Mudiwa. I must ask you, it's the 6th of February 2024. Is this matter hostile at this point? If not, could it get a hostile? Is this just how it goes?
I think this is just how it goes. I think Canal Plus is playing their game. What becomes interesting is what other shareholders will want to back something like this, right? There are a couple of, you know, big investors that are there. What are they saying, right? Because that then determines whatever hostility can come out of this is dependent on, one, how much free float is in the market for Canal Plus to actually take up, and two, will the other, you know, shareholders, you know, take something, you know, something like this on. You can be as hostile as you want, but if there's more than 60% that's being held somewhere, and those people aren't willing to let it go, then it doesn't mean anything.
Well, interesting times. I know we'll be in touch soon, Mudiwa. Thank you for your time. That was technology correspondent for Business Day, Mudiwa Gavaza.